everyone. Our lesson for today is the CSS properties. So, the CSS property is a type of attribute of HTML tag. Put simply, all the HTML attributes are converted into CSS properties. They could be color, border, etc. So first, we have the CSS measurement units. Before we start actual exercise, we would like to give a brief idea about the CSS measurement units. CSS supports a number of measurements, including absolute units such as inches, centimeters, points, and so on, as well as relative measures such as percentage and EM units. You need these values while specifying various measurements in your style rules. Example, the border equals to 1 pixel solid red. So we have listed out all the CSS measurement units along with proper examples. So these are the examples. First, we have the percentage. So defines a measurement as a percentage relative to another value, typically an enclosing element. So this is the unit or the code you need to enter in the source code of HTML file. So the cm defines a measurement in centimeters. So the em, a relative measurement for the height of a font in em spaces, because an em unit is equivalent to the size of a given font. If you assign a font to 12 points, each em unit would be 12 points, thus 2 em would be 24 points. The ex, this value defines a measurement relative to a font's x height. The x height is determined by the height of the font's lowercase letter x. So the in defines a measurement in inches. The defines a measurement in millimeters. PC defines a measurement in picas. A pica is equivalent to 12 points. Thus, there are 6 picas per inch. The PT defines a measurement in points. A point is defined as 1 over 72 of an inch. Px defines a measurement in screen pixels. The BH, 1% of viewport height. Then the BW, the 1% of viewport width. The B minimum is the 1 viewport width or 1 viewport height, whichever is smaller. So next we have the CSS colors. CSS uses color values to specify a color. Typically, these are used to set a color either for the foreground of an element. So, or else, for the background of the element, they can also be used to affect the color of borders and other decorative effects. You can specify your color values in various formats. So, the following table lists all the possible formats. So, first we have the hex code. Next, we have the short hex code, the RGB percentage, the RGB absolute, and the keyword. We have the CSS colors hex codes. So, a hexadecimal is a 6-digit representation of a color. The first 2 digits represent a red value. The next 2 are a green value. And the last are the blue value. So, a hexadecimal value can be taken from any graphics software like Adobe Photoshop, Paint, or even using advanced paintbrush. Each hexadecimal code will be preceded by a pound or hash sign. Following are the example to use hexadecimal notation. So these are my example. So for example, the hash sign and the 6 zeros is equivalent to black color, and so on. So we have the short hex codes. This is a shorter form of the 6-digit notation. In this format, each digit is replicated to arrive at an equivalent 6-digit value. So for example, the hash sign 687 becomes the hash sign 66AA77. A hexadecimal value can be taken from any graphics software like Adobe Photoshop, Paint, or even using advanced paintbrush. Each hexadecimal code will be preceded by a pound or hash sign. So these are my example. The short hex codes is equivalent to 3 digits. For example, the 30 is equivalent to black, and so on. So we have the CSS colors, the RGB values. So this color value is specified using the RGB property. This property takes 3 values, one each for red, green, and blue. The value can be an integer between 0 and 255 or a percentage. So note, all the browsers does not support RGB property of color. So it is recommended not to use it. So these are my example. The RGB in the opening and close parentheses then we have the 30 here are the color black. And we have different colors here. Here is the list of 216 colors, which are supposed to be most safe and computer independent colors. So these colors vary from hexacode 60 to 6F. These colors are safe to use because they ensure that all computers would display the colors correctly when running a 256 color palette. So these are my example for the color, the safe colors here. This one. And then we have the CSS background property. So this lesson teaches how you to set backgrounds of various HTML elements. You can set the following background properties of an element. So first, we have the background color. The property is used to set the background color of an element. The background image property is used to set the background image of an element. The background repeat property is used to control the repetition of an image in the background. And the background position property is used to control the position of an image in the background. The background attachment property is used to control the scrolling of an image in the background. And the background property is used as a shorthand to specify a number of other background properties. So first we have the background color. So these are the syntax of the background color. You can use different styles in entering your style in your HTML file. I use the inline style for now. Later on, I will use the other styles. So when we run it in the browser, you will see the background of a text. So this text has a yellow background color. And next we have the background image. So we can set the background image by this syntax. So background image equals the URL in your image. If your image in the same folder as the file of HTML document, you can use the name of your image, then the extension. And if the picture is that outside in your folder, you can select properties, then copy the location, then add the name and the extension of the image. So when we open it in the browser, you can see we have the background image. And next, we have the background repetition. So the following example demonstrates how to repeat the background image if an image is small. You can use no repeat value for background repeat property if you don't want to repeat an image. So in this case, image will display only once. So by default, background repeat property will have repeat value. So this is the syntax. When we open it in the browser, as this is the same as the background image because the image is too small. It repeats by itself. So we have the background image position. So this is to set the background image position 100 pixels away from the left side. You can see for my example, I declared 100 pixels for my position. So this example resulted as this. So the image will move to the left side 100 pixels away. Next, we have the background attachment. So background attachment determines whether a background image speaks or scrolls with the rest of the page. So the following example demonstrates how to set the fixed background image. So this is for my example. The background attachment is fixed and the background repeat is declared as no repeat value for the image. So when we open it in the browser, so you can see if you scroll down the page, the image did not move. And then we have the background scrolling. So these are my example. The background attachment, then the value is scroll. So when you scroll down the page, the image will move. Next, we have the shorten property for the background image. So you can use the background property to set all the background properties at once. So for example, this, we have the background, then the image, then the repeat is fixed. So when we open it in the browser, that's how it is. Next, we have the font family. So the fonts, so this lesson teaches you how to set fonts of a content available in an HTML element. You can set the following font properties of an element. So first we have the font family. So the font family property is used to change the face of a font. So these are the syntax. A change by Georgia Garamond Serif. So when we open it in the browser, this is the result. This text is rendered by Georgia Garamond or the default serif font, depending on which font you have at your system. So next we have the font style. So the font style property is used to make font italic or oblique. So the possible values are normal, italic, and oblique. So I declared italic for my example. So it will produce the following result. So the text is being italicized. Next, we add the font variant. Font variant property is used to create a small caps effect. So this is the syntax. So if you open it in the browser, it will produce the following result as the small caps. Setting up the font weight. So the following example demonstrates how to set the font weight of an element. The font weight property provides the functionality to specify how bold the font is. So possible values could be normal, bold, bolder, and lighter. And you can use the numbering system. So 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, and so on. So if we open it in the browser, this will produce the following result. Next, you have the font size. So the following example demonstrates how to set the font size of an element. So the font size property is used to control the size of fonts. Possible values could be XX small, the X small, small, medium, large, X large, the XX large, smaller, larger, size in pixels or in percentage. So this will produce the following result. We have the font size. adjust. So the following example demonstrates how to set the font size adjust of an element. So this property enables you to adjust the X height to make fonts more legible. Possible value could be any number. So this are the syntax. You can see these are my example. Next we have the font stretch. So the following example demonstrates how to set the font stretch of an element. So this property relies on the user's computer to have an expanded or condensed version of the font being used. The possible values could be normal, wider, narrower, ultra condensed, extra condensed, condensed, semi-condensed, semi-expanded, expanded, extra expanded, and ultra expanded. So it will produce the following result. Next, we have the shorten property for the font. So you can use the font property to set all the font properties at once. So as for example, for this, we have the italic, small caps, bold, and the 15 pixels, and the font family Georgia. So if you open this in the browser, next we have the text property. So this lesson teaches you how to manipulate text using CSS properties. You can set the following text properties of an element. We have the color property is used to set the color of a text. So the following example demonstrate how to set the text color. Possible value could be any color name in any valid format. So I declared red for my example. Next we have the text direction. So the property is used to set the text direction. So the possible values are the left to right or right to left values. So set the space between the characters. The following example demonstrates how to set the space between characters. The possible values are normal or a number spacing specifying space. So I declared 5 pixels for my spacing. These are the result. Next we have the space between words. So the following example demonstrates how to set the space between words. Possible values are normal or a number specifying space. Just like the space between characters, the space between words are spacing between your words used in the HTML file. Word by word spacing. Next, we have the text indent. So the possible values are the percentage or a number specifying indent space. So I declared 1 centimeter for my space. So this will produce the following result. As you can see, the indentation is 1 centimeter away from the left. We have the text alignment. So the following example demonstrates how to align a text. The possible values are left, right, center, or justify. So I declared right, center, and the left, which is your paragraph is being moved into the right, into the center, into the left. Next, you have the decorating the text. The possible values for this is none, underline, overline, line through, and the blink. So I declared underline, the line through, the overline, and the blink, which produce the following result. Set the text cases. So text cases is the property used to capitalize text or convert text to uppercase or lowercase letters. So the possible values are none, capitalize, uppercase, or lowercase. This is the capitalized text. Capital word. From the start of the word, it's capital. In the uppercase and the lowercase letter. Set the white space between text. So the possible values are normal, the pre, and no wrap. So this will produce the following result. Next, we have the text shadow. This may not be supported by all the browsers, but I explain it. So the text shadow, these are the syntax. I declared blue as my shadow. Next, we have the border property. So images play an important role in any web page. Though it's not recommended to include a lot of images, but it is still important to use good images wherever required. So CSS plays a good role to control image display. You can set the following image property using the border, height, and width property. So the border property of an image is used to set the width of an image border. So this property can have a value in length or in percentage. A width of 0 pixels means no border. So I enter my image, then the border and its value. In the first one, I declared the 0 pixels. So it has no border in the first image. Then the second border is the dash red, and the value is 3 pixel. Next, we have the image height property. This property of an image is used to set the height of an image. This property can have a value in length or in percentage. While giving a value in percentage, it applies it in respect of the box in which an image is available. So this the height in pixels, then the height in percentage. Next, we have the image width property. The width property of an image is used to set the width of an image. So this property can have a value in length or in percentage, just like the height property of an image. Next, you have the links. So this lesson teaches you how to set the different properties of a hyperlink using CSS. You can set the following properties of a hyperlink. The link, visited, hover, and active. Usually, all these properties are kept in the header part of the HTML document. Remember, a hover must come after a link and a visited in the CSS definition in order to be effective. Also, active must come after a hover in the CSS definition as follows. Now, we will see how to use the properties to give different effects to hyperlinks. So we have the link, the visited, and the hover, as well as the active property of the links. So this will produce the following result. Next, you have the tables. So this lesson will teach you how to set the different properties of an HTML table using CSS. First, you have the border collapse. Specify whether the browser should not control the appearance of the adjacent borders that touch each other, or whether each cell should maintain its style. So this property can have two values: collapse and separate. The following example uses both the values. Then this will produce the following result. The collapse and the separated tables. Next, you have the border spacing property. So the border spacing property specify the distance that separate adjacent cells. Borders, it can take either one or two values. This should be units of length. If you provide a one value, it will apply to both vertical and horizontal borders. Or you can specify two values, in which case the first refers to the horizontal spacing and the second to the vertical spacing. So I have the syntax here. Created. Next, we have the caption side property. So this property allows you to specify whether the content of a caption element should be placed in relationship to the table. So the table that follow lists the possible values. This property can have one of the four values: top, bottom, left, and right. So the following example uses each value. So first you have the caption class, top, the bottom, the left, and the right. When you open it in the browser, this will produce the following result. This caption will appear at the top, this caption will appear at the bottom, and the left and the right. Next, we have the empty cells property. So the empty cells property indicates whether a cell without any content should have a border displayed. This property can have one of the three values: the show, hide, or inherit. So here is the empty cells property used to hide borders of an empty cells in the table element. Next, we have the table layout property. The table layout property is supposed to help you control how a browser should render or lay out a table. This property can have one of these three values: the fix, auto, or inherit. So the following example shows the difference between these properties. So we have the auto and the fix. This one is the fix value and this one is the auto value declared. Next, we have the border, color, or the border properties allow you to specify how the border of the box representing an element should look. So these are three properties of a border you can change: the border color, the border style, the border width. So first we have the border color. The border color property allows you to change the color of the border surrounding an element. You can individually change the color of the bottom, left, top, and right sides of an element's border using the properties. So the border bottom color, the border top color, the border left color, and the border right color. Next, you have the border style property. So the border style property allows you to select one of the following styles of the border. The none, the solid, the dotted, dash, double, the groove, the ridge, the inset, outset, and the hidden. So you can individually change the style of the bottom, left, of the bottom, the left, the top, and the right borders of an element using the following properties. So the border bottom style, the border top style, the border left style, and the border right style. So this will produce the following result. This is the border with non-width. This is a solid border. This is a dash border. The double border. The groove. The ridge. The inset. The outset. The hidden border. And this is a border with 4 different styles. Next, we have the border width property. So the border width property allows you to set the width of an element borders. The value of this property could be either a length in pixels, points, or centimeter, or it should be set to thin, medium, or thick. So the pixels, the point, the thin, and the medium, as well as the thick border width. So this is a solid border whose width is 4 pixels, solid border whose width is 4 points, solid border whose width is thin, and the solid border whose width is medium, and the thick, and this is a border with 4 different width. Next, we have the shorthand, the margins. The margin property defines the space around an HTML element, so it is possible to use negative values to overlap content. The values of the margin property are not inherited by the child elements. Remember that the adjacent vertical margins, top and bottom margins, will collapse into each other so that the distance between the blocks is not the sum of the margins, but only the greater of the two margins, or the same size as one margin if both are equal. So the margin property allows you to set all the properties of the four margins in one declaration. So this is the syntax here. The margin so all four margins will be 15 pixels. Top and bottom margin will be 10 pixels. Left and right margin will be 2% of the total width of the document. The top margin will be 10 pixels. Left and right margin will be 2% of the total width of the document. Bottom margin will be negative 10 pixels. The top margin will be 10 pixels. The right margin will be 2% of the total width of the document. The bottom margin will be negative 10 pixels. And the left margin will be set by the browser. Next, we have the margin bottom property. So it allows you to set bottom margin of an element. It can have a value in length, percentage, or auto. So this is a paragraph with a specified bottom margin. This is another paragraph with a specified bottom margin in percent. Next, you have the margin top property. So this property allows you to set the top margin of an element. It can have a value in length, percent, or auto. Next, we have the margin left. It allows you to set the left margin of an element. Next, we have the margin right property. So it allows you to set right margin of an element. It can have a value in length, percentage, or auto. Next, we have the list property. Lists are very helpful in conveying a set of either numbered or bullet points. So this chapter teaches you how to control list type, position, style, etc. using CSS. So we have the following 5 CSS properties which can be used to control lists. So the first one is the list style type allows you to control the shape or appearance of the marker. Next, we have the list style position. Specify whether a long point that drops to a second line should align with the first line or start underneath the start of the marker. The list style image. Specify an image for the marker rather than a bullet point or number. The list style serves as shorthand for the preceding properties. The marker offset specifies the distance between a marker and the text in the list. The list style type property allows you to control the shape or style of bullet point, also known as a marker. In the case of an ordered list, and the style of numbering characters in ordered list. So, here are the values which can be used for an ordered list. The none, the this, the circle, and the square values. So, the values which can be used for an ordered list is the decimal leading 0, lower alpha, upper alpha, the lower Roman, upper Roman, lower Greek, lower Latin, upper Latin, the Hebrew, Armenian, Georgian, the CJK, Ideographic, the Hiragana, Katakana, Hiragana Iroha, Katakana Iroha. So this will produce the following result. These are the marker, as I said earlier. Next, you have the list style position property. So the list style position property indicates whether the marker should appear inside or outside of the box containing the bullet points. It can have one and the two values. So the values for this is the none, the inside, and the outside values. As you can see, it will indent if you declared inside property or values in the list style position. Next, you have the list style image. So the list style image allows you to specify an image so that you can use your own bullet style. The syntax is similar to the background image property, with the letters URL starting the value of the property followed by the URL in the brackets. If it does not find the given image, then default bullets are used. So for now on, the image did not appear. Next, we have the list style property. So the list style allows you to specify all the list properties into a single expression. So these are the syntax for this list style. We have the list style, the inside, and the square. Next, you have the marker offset property. The marker offset property allows you to specify the distance between the marker and the text relating to that marker. So its value should be length as shown in the following example. Unfortunately, this property is not supported in Internet Explorer 6 or Netscape 7. Next, we have the paddings. So the padding property allows you to specify how much space should appear between the content of an element and its border. The value of this attribute should be either a length, a percentage, or the word inherit. If the value is inherit, it will have the same padding as its parent element. If a percentage is used, the percentage is of the containing box. So the following CSS properties can be used to control lists. You can also set different values for the padding on each side of the box using the following properties. The padding bottom. So the padding bottom property sets the bottom padding space of an element. So this can take a value in terms of length or percentage. Next, you have the padding top property. Top property sets the top padding space of an element. Next, you have the padding left. So this property sets the left padding space of an element. Next, you have the padding right. The padding right property sets the right padding space of an element. And next, we have the padding property. Sets the left, right, top, and bottom padding space of an element. This is the shorthand property for this padding. So all four padding will be 15 pixels. The top and bottom will be 10 pixels. The left and right padding will be 2% of the total width of the document. The top padding will be 10% pixels. Left and right padding will be 2% of the total width of the document. The bottom padding will be 10 pixels. The top padding will be 10 pixels. Right padding will be 2% of the total width of the document. The bottom padding and the top padding will be 10 pixels. The cursor property of CSS allows you to specify the type of a cursor that should be displayed to the user. So one good usage of this property is in using images for submit buttons on forms. So by default, when a cursor hovers over a link, the cursor changes from a pointer to a hand. However, is that it does not change form for a submit button on a form. Therefore, whenever someone hovers over an image that is a submit button, it provides a visual clue that the image is clickable. So we have different value for this: the auto, the crosshair, the default, pointer, move, the resize, the northeast resize, northwest resize, the north resize, the southeast resize, southwest resize, the south resize, west resize, the text, the weight, and the help cursor value. You should try to use only these values to add helpful information for users, and in places they would expect to see that cursor. For example, using the crosshair when someone hovers over a link can confuse the visitors. So when you hover this, the cursor will change. Next, you have the outlines. Outlines are very similar to borders, but there are few major differences as well. An outline does not take up space. Outlines do not have to be rectangular. Outline is always the same on all sides. You cannot specify different values for different sides of an element. So the outline properties are not supported by IE6 or Netscape 7. You can set the following outline properties using CSS. The outline width property specifies the width of the outline to be added to the box. Its value should be a length or one of the values thin, medium, or thick, just like the border width attribute. Next, we have the outline style property. So the outline style property specifies the style for the line, the solid, dotted, or dash. The next one, we have the outline color property. So the outline color property allows you to specify the color of the outline. Its value should either be a color name, a hex color, or an RGB value. As with the color and border color properties. Next, we have the dimension property. You have seen the border that surrounds every box, element, the padding that can appear inside each box, and the margin that can go around them. In this lesson, we will see how we can change the dimensions of boxes. So first, we have the height property is used to set the highlight of a box. And the width properties is used to set the width of the box. The height and width properties allows you to set the height and width for boxes. They can take values for a length, a percentage, or the keyword auto. This paragraph is 400 pixels wide and 100 pixels high. The line height property the line height property allows you to increase the space between lines of text. The value of the line property can be a number, a length, or a percentage. The max height property The max height property allows you to specify maximum height of a box. So this property does not work in either Netscape 7 or IE6. So this paragraph is 400 pixels wide and max height is 10 pixels. Next, you have the minimum height property. It allows you to specify minimum height of a box. So this paragraph is 200 pixels high and max width is 100 pixels. Next, we have the max width property. It allows you to specify maximum width of the box. This is the max width and this is the minimum width property. Next, you have the scroll bars. So this may be a case when an element's contain might be larger than the amount of space allocated to it. For example, given width and height properties, do not allow enough room to accommodate the content of the element. So CSS provides a property called overflow which tells the browser what to do if the box contents is larger than the box itself. So the possible values for this is the visible, the hidden, the scroll, and the auto. So that's all of the CSS properties. Thank you.